Hey everybody, Lawrence from financialthing.com here. Another Thursday evening live stream. And we have a special guest this evening. Of course, Natalie Weeks is here. She's the head of portfolio over at Kuflink. I like to, for those of you that maybe haven't seen the stream before, or for anybody that doesn't know who Financial Thing is, what I do is try to get the people who run the peer-to-peer lending companies and financial companies to come on here live and answer questions. We really look for transparency. I think this is something that's really missing in the financial world. And this is why we do this, so you can come here, ask your questions. Hopefully we'll get an answer. You've always got the FCA to worry about what you can and can't say live, but usually people that do come on the stream are really open to questions and answering. They want to be transparent. They want your business. And if you are an investor through Kuflink's loans, you want to take this time and this opportunity to ask these questions and to really gain this information, because this is the only place that I know of on the internet where you can actually have a live interaction with the people who are making important decisions and who are protecting your money. So anyway, big hello, big shout out to everybody who's watching live. It is about 35 degrees here in Orlando, Florida. It's boiling hot. It's sunny. I hope it's sunny where you are. Please hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new or you're watching on catch up. This is all offered to you for free, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to get right into this and get Natalie on the phone, on the line, live in video. She's in Gravesend at this late hour, way past the end of her workday, but doing this for us. So I really hope you enjoy it. Just give me a second, because this is all live. Here we go. Just a little Skype. Okay. Let's get you on here. There she is, live and direct from Gravesend. Beautiful sunny Gravesend, right?
Sunny Gravesend. It has been nice today.
Well, that's good. I don't know if you know this, but every week when we do the live stream, Natalie, and thank you for being here, everybody kind of puts in where they're from in the chat, and they like to give a weather update. It must be an English thing, but
it's definitely an English thing.
It's definitely an English thing. Oh, that's funny. So, yeah, thanks again, Natalie, for being here. I've got some questions for you. If anybody else too has questions in the chat, just put them in. We'll do a Q&A at the end of the session. I just noticed somebody in the chat said, I'm a big fan of Natalie. Her name is Sophie Weeks. Is that a relation?
That's my daughter.
There you go. So we're a fan of Natalie too, because she does important things. Did I spell your name wrong? Is it 2 T's or 1 T?
It is 2 T's. You can blame my mother for that.
Well, I'm going to call your daughter out. She spelt it with 1 T, so I thought I'm usually the one that gets it wrong. Anyway, so Natalie, tell me, for everybody that doesn't know you, because there's going to be people here. I've had you on before with Harry a while ago, but there's going to be people that don't know who you are. So just tell me what your official role is over at Kuflink and when you joined the company.
So I am a director of group and a director of Kuflink Bridging Limited and head of portfolio, and currently overseeing the collections team and the collections process again. And I joined in February 2017.
2017. So you've been there for, let me do my math, seven years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Our CEO has threatened to put a long-standing members of the team list on the wall.
Would you be close to the top?
There's two or three people ahead of me, but I'm near the top. Yeah.
Near the top. Okay, good. Okay, and Natalie, what did you do before you joined the Kuflink team?
So I started work as a mere child in NatWest Bank. 30 years I did in NatWest Bank, just over 30 years. Ending obviously in RBS when we were taken over through that tenure. Did many roles in the bank in wealth management, working with venture capital companies. I ended up in an operational risk role looking after credit risk teams.
Okay. So what is the biggest difference that you've noticed between a very serious banking structure to what you do now within the peer-to-peer lending world? If there's one thing that strikes off the top of your head that's so different.
Absolutely, the ability to change fast. A big corporation is like trying to steer a very big ship when you want to turn it. A small company, you can move fast, and we do.
You know, it's funny you say that because I've been trying to get a bank loan done through a high street bank for, I think we're coming on month 9. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy because I know peer-to-peer lenders, they can move much faster, and that's definitely one of the big advantages. And so prior to joining Kuflink, did you have any knowledge of peer-to-peer lending at all, or had you invested in peer-to-peer loans previously?
Nope, none at all. I obviously had the basics of lending, but had no experience of peer-to-peers.
Did you even know what it meant when you applied for this job position, or did you know what peer-to-peer meant?
I could have hazarded a guess. I did my research before I came in for the interview, so yeah, it was a very steep learning curve for me. It was a world I wasn't used to. I can work numbers. I know what a loan is. So the whole structure of how we fund our loans, and then having the constant balance of your investors' wants and needs and your borrowers' wants and needs, it's an interesting concept.
It is, and I think if you walk down the high street, and this is still something that I say we need further education, but a lot of people still don't even know what peer-to-peer lending is, and it's kind of crazy that this industry has been going for quite a while now, since 2008, I think, now maybe. Yeah. And people still don't know what it is, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to educate, right?
Indeed.
So, head of portfolio, can you sort of give a quick overview of what your day-to-day duties look like over there at Kuflink?
So I'm overseeing the collections team, so obviously making sure they're comfortable with knowing what they're doing. If there's anything contentious, whatever it gets to a recovery situation, and it becomes into my area. But taking a holistic view of our lending book. So what's repaying, what loans are we taking on, how does that fit? Do we have concentration risks? What's the mix of the portfolio look like? Have we got anything that's been there for too long, sort of aged loans that I absolutely want those out the door? We need to sort those out. I'm on the credit committee, so anything that comes in that someone wants to do that's outside of our general credit policy has to come to credit committee, and they have to make a case. So I must have looked at 6-7 deals come through today that were not within our policy. So I think a couple of them we said no. 4 of them we said okay, if it looks like this, if you can make it look like this, we'll do it. So it's a constant. I always say we're spinning plates, constantly trying to balance things.
Explain to me a little bit more. I'm excited to learn more about that credit committee. So just talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. How does that work?
Okay, so it's
maybe a 7-year-old. Five might be pushing it.
So we always try to keep an odd number on the credit committee, because if you're going to have a difference of opinion, you need an odd number so that you can go with the majority. It's we try to keep a mix. So we have our CEO on the credit committee who's very sales orientated. You have our head of chief risk officer and our head of underwriting who are quite risk averse. I try to sit somewhere in the middle. Narinda would say, our CEO, that I'm more on the risk averse side, but I'm looking at it more on the will they be able to exit and will we be able to get our money back. And we have our asset manager who looks after the development loans, mainly comes from a building background, and we all have an opinion, so we don't tend to sit together and try to force an opinion. We'll all have our own opinions, and the chief risk officer absolutely is the person that collates all those opinions. If he's got 3 very diverse opinions, then he might have to get us in a room and bang heads until we come to an agreement. But he will normally take a view of, in general, I think this is a yes, looking at what people are saying, and this is what we would like it to look like. or it's a no, you know.
Do you tend to be on the same page when it comes to these credit committees, or
Generally,
are you more like politicians where you're half and half and somebody has to make the final decision?
absolutely no one's allowed to sit on the fence. You have to have an opinion.
Yeah.
So there was one today that I think a couple of people were not looking at it favourably. I thought I would do it. I'm not actually. I think if we could get it to look like this, I think I would take that onto the books. So I think we did do that one in a slightly different way. Well, we offered to do it in a slightly different way than it was put forward. But it doesn't always go in my favour. But it's a business decision. So we're not sulking about it. We move on.
Yeah.
We'll do the deal or we won't.
You get plenty of applications too, so if one doesn't get through, there's many more.
Yeah.
So, and I know nowadays you kind of have to be really careful about what you do take because you get so many applications. I know I've heard it from other companies, the amount of applications they get through the door versus what they actually approve. The percentage is quite small, right?
Yeah, so in general we where were we? We are everything that we send a DIP out, so a decision in principle, so it's a basic in general we think we could look at this for you. Probably a third of those come back as applications, and of those applications historically we were running at about a third of those would drop off and 2/3 we would do. It's kind of swung a bit the other way, so we're trying to work out what I don't know if we're more risk averse or the deals are coming in that are a little bit more troublesome. We're not sure what, but you get another load that drops out before they actually get to completion. So it's definitely a hopper. Lots and lots in the top and it narrows down.
Oh, I like that analogy, a hopper.
It's a hopper.
Nobody's ever used that one before. You're the first. Natalie.
I live on a farm, so this is a farming term.
Is that true? You do, really?
I live on a farm, yeah.
Wow. Do you actually farm stuff
My husband works for on a farm, so it's an agricultural farm. It's a arable farm rather, so not animals.
There you go. Oh, okay, cool. I love farms. I don't know why. It's one. I think it's that Jeremy Clarkson show, right? That everybody loves farming after that. Let's talk about you as I, my opinion, are in one of the most important spots in the company because you're the person that chases the loans and makes sure that they're performing. And this is the one thing that plagues peer-to-peer companies, sometimes badly, sometimes in a good way. And from the feedback, honestly, Natalie, that I get about Kuflink is that you guys do actually do a good job really keeping up on those loans and taking care of the ones that are not doing well. Obviously, it's development lending and property lending, so there are going to be things that are unforeseen and do pop up, and it's quite a difficult spot to be. In fact, I wouldn't want your job. I'll just say it. It's a tricky job. It takes a special type of person. But let's talk about the collections process. So walk me through at the very beginning. Borrower having trouble making a payment on money that they have that they borrowed through Kuflink. What's that first step that would happen at that point?
So we'd want to understand. So the first thing I would do is I would look back at the actual loan and understand what they told us they were going to do in the first place. So how were they going to exit? So for me, the exit is key. I don't want to take a loan onto the books if I don't think they can achieve their exit. So their exit is when they repay us. So what did they say they were going to do? And then I'll be talking to the borrower. So what has happened? What's your exit now? Are you still planning to do whatever you were going to do in the first place or not? If not, why not? So what's happened in their world or not happened most of the time? A lot of the time, I think, especially inexperienced borrowers are unrealistic about the length of time it will take to refinance a deal or to sell a property, especially at the moment sales are a bit sticky. So we try and find out what it is that's caused the problem. And then initially what do they want us to do? What can we do to help you? Now, that isn't always going to be a given. They might, whatever they want, one, might not be something we're willing to do, and two, might not be in their best interests, because treating customer fairly is not about giving them what they want all the time, because what they need might not be what they want, and they might not like what they need, but the reality is they are going to have to exit this loan. So there is absolutely no point in marking a loan on for a length of time if that time doesn't get them to the place where they can exit. If they're still going to be in 3 or 6 months' time in exactly the same place, there is absolutely no point in doing that. So if they're going to have to take some hard decisions, they might as well take them now.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to understand what's caused the problem, what could we possibly do, if anything, to help them. And that might be, if they haven't got a broker that they're working with, referring them to a broker. We absolutely can't advise them. We can give them their options. And then it might be a case of telling them, this is what we're going to do to get you out of this loan, and you might not like that.
Okay. Is that, I'm presuming, the collections point?
That's the recovery point. I would call that recovery. So that's the point where we're actually going to put a solicitor onto it if we need to get vacant possession, and or we're going to put a receiver in, and they will take control of that property and sell it if we need to.
Okay, so it starts with a conversation. Are most borrowers open to that conversation when they start to get into that difficult time, or do some dodge the communication? Well, what's the general percentage, say, if you had to take a guess off the top of your list, of people that want to work with you when the loan is running into some issues or difficulties versus the ones that just dodge and don't answer the phone and create issues?
I would say absolutely 75 to 80% of the people absolutely will do what they need to do, face up to it, know they're in trouble, and try to help their own selves. There's always some people that think they can ignore it, think they can be clever and hide the situation from us, and we might not notice that they're in trouble. Try to just sort of squirm around it, and I'm fine, and I will work with people, but I don't like liars. And once you're lying to me, that's fine. That's fine. Let's all be honest. You're lying. I know you're lying. You're lying. But we're now going to have to do something about this, because once you're caught in a lie, what can I believe?
Yeah. So listen up. If you are a borrower out there and you are one of the 15%, just don't lie to Natalie, and your life will be a lot easier, because she's here to help you at the end of the day, right?
We want them to get out. The easiest thing for us is for the borrowers to achieve their exit and pay us back. Happy days.
And everybody's
We're happy, they're
right?
happy.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good. So, okay, so you get in contact with the borrower. You try to work things out. Sometimes things can't be worked out for whatever reasons. It could be building issues or delays or weather, just financial issues. It then goes into a point of recovery. So do you actually just use the word recovery for the whole process of recovering a property to where it goes to the very final point, which I think is you, Kuflink, taking over the property?
I would use the term recovery when we have a third party instructed in some way, whether that's a solicitor engaged to encourage them to pay, and that might be by saying, look, absolutely, you owe this money to us, we're going to have to start taking action. If it's a property that's tenanted, we might be going for vacant possession before we start putting a receiver in, or it might be a receiver. So a receiver absolutely stands in the shoes of the borrowers. They're not there to take an instruction from us. They are there to stand in the shoes of the borrowers, and they have to have the best interest of the borrower and the lender in mind. They can't just go in and run roughshod over things and make life hell for everyone. They absolutely become the borrower.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned too about tenant. If a property was tenant, did you try to get a vacant tenancy before?
We usually.
How do you do that?
You have to go to court. So this will cause a delay. There's a fine line. If you've got a tenant in a property and they're paying a market rent and they're a good tenant, it absolutely might make sense to sell that property with a sitting tenant, because an incoming landlord might be happy to take that tenant. If you've got a tenant in that might be paying slightly less rent than the market would expect, or we get agents' advice that the property will sell much better, and it has to be quite a bit better if it's vacant, because obviously we have to bear in mind the time it's going to take to clear the property of the tenant, then we go to court. So you have to apply for a hearing and have good reason to have asked for vacant possession. Then you'll get a vacant possession date, and that can take months. Then in general, people don't leave, because if you need to be rehoused, you have to be absolutely physically evicted. So then you have to go to the High Court to get a bailiff eviction date, which can take months and months again. And then the bailiffs go round, and then you hopefully have vacant possession, at which point you hope they haven't made too much mess and been too cross, and then you have to make the house ready or the property ready for marketing.
It sounds like a complete headache. But
I find it interesting. That's me.
Yes, for everybody watching, by the way, please give Natalie a thumbs up on the stream, because it's almost 8 o'clock p.m. and she's taking her time. She could be at home, eating fish and chips, watching Coronation Street or whatever Natalie likes to do. And instead, she's here to give you all this amazing value and information. So please give her a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. And even if you're not enjoying it, give it a thumbs up. I think it's worth it. So by the way, I wanted to ask you, when do you decide that this is formally goes into recovery? And is this another credit committee decision, or are you responsible for making that decision as to when you call that loan and say, we are not going to recover the money unless we do this now?
So I would usually make the recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
It does go to our senior leadership team. So that will be a decision that we all make. I have to make a case. I have to say, this is where the loan is, this is what we owe our investors, this is what I think the property is worth, and this is what it's going to cost to recover it. So for these reasons, whatever the reason is, the relationship is broke down, that the borrower is not taking the steps we need them to take to pay us back, for whatever the reason is, I think we need to instruct, and this is the route that I think we should take.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, I'll ask you this first. Cost-wise, as somebody who's done evictions before, they can be quite costly.
Yep.
Recovering a loan on your end, I'm sure most of us don't understand what the costs are involved in that. And this is actually, somebody asked this in the chat. Thank you, Dave Dawson, for asking this. But he said, and it's the same thing I wanted to ask you, how did Kuflink control the costs of bringing a receiver in, and how do you keep it to a manageable level? Because obviously it can be quite expensive.
Yeah. Sometimes there's little you can do. So if we have a straightforward recovery and a borrower that isn't obstructive, you're looking at £15,000 to £20,000 all in, with legals and agents' fees. So the cost of selling a property is the same as if you or I sell a property. We have to pay agents' fees. The receivers' costs, they have to put it under insurance cover. They do all the legwork. We have valuers. There's a myriad of costs. So absolute minimum, £15,000 to £20,000 to recover. I've got one at the moment or two at the moment we've had to put in administrators. That's going to cost more. One of them, we have sales arranged for pretty much all of the properties. The borrower will not hand over the manco to us. the management company on the site. So we're in legals to achieve that, and that's taking time and will add to the cost.
Yeah. How dare he do that?
He can dare. It's absolutely his prerogative, but we will go after him for the shortfall. So this is entirely his choice. Unfortunately, this is just going to make a lot more pain for everyone.
What also, Natalie, is the typical time frame on average for property going into collections and being completely finalized and back in your hands?
So
how long does that normally take?
A straightforward one can be 3 months. We recover it. Nobody complains. It's a good property we can sell. We put it into an auction. Standard auction terms, 28 days completion. Happy days, 3 months, everything's done. I've got a couple that are sitting on 2 years. So one's a fairly non-standard security, which wasn't helped by COVID and everybody not going into the office. So that's taken time. We did actually meet with our borrower fairly recently. We hope we've come to an arrangement that we can all work with to get that one sorted. And the other one is one of the ones I've just spoke about the Manco.
So, yeah.
That
very time
it's frustrating, but I'm hoping, and I can't promise anything, but I am hoping that I'm starting to see movement. I'm working very hard on the ones that have been outstanding for a length of time.
Do you have help, by the way, or is it you solely doing this?
Oh no, of course there's loads of help in the office. So our chief risk officer, obviously, lots of sounding boards, Narinda, our CEO. There's lots of people to talk to.
See, and now I'm convinced that since you guys got rid of the table tennis table, everybody's production has just gone way up, right?
Well, we've got music. We always have music in the office.
Yeah.
It's actually a very friendly team, so we do make sure that we're talking to one another, because there's no one part of the business that actually drives this business forward. We are all needed. We're all cogs in a big machine.
Yeah, and by the way, if you haven't seen my video, go to the Financial Thing YouTube channel. And I actually went to visit Kuflink with a video camera, and I got some of the people reluctantly on camera to say hi, and you can take a look around the office and see what they're up to. It's pretty interesting. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Somebody had emailed me this question yesterday to ask you specifically. Do lenders continue to accrue interest while a loan is in collections?
So we have the right under the lending documentation to charge default interest. There's a very fine balance in applying default interest, because you absolutely have to keep an eye on the value of the property and the exit, because at some point you're applying a charge that you're not going to get back. So we do apply standard interest, and we pay standard interest to our investors all the way through to the end of the loan being repaid. The 2 loans that have been going on for 2 years, we've been paying 2 years of standard interest to our investors. We will never get that default interest. We're not even dreaming of that. That's not coming. And a good chunk of the standard interest may not come back. So I know the argument, we've had this debate in house, and our investors have raised this before. Why don't we get to share the default interest? It's one we toy with quite often. I personally still sit in the place where I think they're better off getting their standard interest than us stopping paying any interest at the end of the loan on the promise that they're going to share something that we may or may not get. It's open for debate. It's not one that we've absolutely decided on. It's one that comes up a lot. I understand the investors' questions when they ask that, and I think there's a perception that we're coining it in. I wish we were. Our company accounts are out there for everyone to see. When we do get default interest, we keep it, but it's not a given that we're going to get that. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I actually really agree with you on that point too. I think for lenders to be able to get their regular interest, and to get capital back on a loan that has gone into collections is a really good result for them, especially as I've been through, losses as investors. So I always try not to be greedy. I'm like, thank God, I'd be happy just to get my capital back in some cases where loans go into collections. So,
and when we're recovering, one of the key things we're thinking also, we've got key points. We've got, what do we owe our investors, and what's the absolute that loan owes us, and as an absolute minimum, I want back what we owe our investors, absolute minimum. And we don't want to write off anything, but I absolutely want our investors' money back, and I'll fight for that.
That I do know about you. You would definitely do fight for that. That's good. Moving on. Okay. And yes, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll do a quick Q&A at the end. I don't want to keep Natalie for too long, but we do have a couple of questions that I'm going to get to at the end. Actually, this next question that I am going to present to you also covers somebody asked. In the property bridging and lending sector, we know that there are delays, that loans do run past their term. It's something that people complain about a lot. They don't necessarily understand the nature of property lending. We have seen some of those terms on more loans now running past you, and people get nervous and afraid. Obviously, what kind of consoling words can you tell the people out there who are nervous about possibly these loans running past term or getting towards a collection phase?
Yeah, I understand their frustration. They've gone into a loan, they expect it to repay at a period, after a period. I absolutely understand that. We went through a time during COVID when our regulators required us to allow people to extend loans, and I think that made people a little bit complacent. They think they kind of got into a place where they expected that lenders would just reterm loans. We've got a few sticky ones that have retermed a couple of times. We are trying to get those, pushing those. We would never reterm a loan if it was going to put a loan to value in a place that was not unsafe, where the risk became such that we were unhappy with it. We always try to get a capital reduction. We'll always try to get a rate uplift, and we'll pass that on to our investors if we get a rate uplift. We will try to get additional security. So if we extend a loan, it's always with risk in mind, and always if we can see that giving them the extra time will allow them to achieve an exit. As I said earlier, if we're going to give them 6 months and they're going to be in exactly the same place, there's absolutely no point in giving them 6 months. You have to be able to achieve your exit. There are a lot fewer, and I think there's a little bit of confusion, which I think we are trying to find a way to address. So when a loan gets to the end of its term on our platform, if it hasn't repaid, we'll give an update and we'll mark it on, but it will say new loan end date. But we haven't extended that loan. We've just marked the date on so we can come back by that date and give you another update. The loan has not been retermed. So I think that's something that we need to be better at explaining, and we are working on that.
So, if you are nervous about obviously loans extending, just understand that there are people in the background who are working on trying to get the best outcome. The last thing I think people don't understand too, as lenders, as investors, that we don't want a loan going into collections. That is the possible worst case scenario. It gets expensive, it gets delayed. So it's really in the best interests of Kuflink to work with that borrower in any way they can to make sure that loan stays on track and gets ultimately repaid. Sometimes that comes at the cost of time. But
yeah, we absolutely share their frustration. We don't want to reterm loans, and we do not put into our paperwork now that any reterm will be considered. A lender has to come to us a borrower rather has to come to us with a clear reason why and make their case.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of collections, could you give us maybe an example of a borrower, a real life example, if you're allowed to share something like that, where somebody has run into some difficulties and you've worked with them? Maybe they're having a life challenge or something that's going on in their life where you've worked with them to make a good outcome for them and for yourselves as lenders.
We have one loan where the borrower was going through a divorce and had some health issues. So we agreed to, I think we extended the loan a little bit, then we agreed to take back the vast majority, 90% of the loan, and there was a balance outstanding. So the 90% paid back all the investors, and the balance outstanding, we absolutely took a bit of a punt on this person that, if we give you another month, you tell us you can pay that back. And we took that chance. So we'll take that chance on a small bit. It was our risk, our money. We took that chance and they did pay that back. So we don't, thankfully, touch wood, not too many of our borrowers have had massive life-changing issues come up that have caused them problems. It tends to be more the lending environment and maybe their own inexperience in the lending environment that may have caught them out a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we've got a development loan at the moment where they are getting close to completion now, but we've had to hold their hands a bit. They were not as experienced as they thought they were. It's fairly close to us geographically, so our asset manager has been spending more time going backwards and forwards, making sure they're on track, just sort of behind them, keeping them moving, keep going, you're nearly there. So we've had a few of those.
And you would never, I would put my neck on the line and say you would never get that from a high street bank. I don't think so, right?
I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah. But then they're lending to very big house building chains. We're lending to your local builder who's decided to build a property in his garden.
That's true. So, Natalie, what's something about the collections process that, as on the lender side of the investor side, that you could tell us that we maybe find surprising that we might not know about?
I think there's an incredibly high percentage of women that do collections. Now, I don't know why that is. I go to events and there are more women doing collections than I would have expected to see. I don't know if it's because we're less combative, but absolutely know our mind, the women that do it. I was surprised myself.
Really? Yeah. Wow. My ex-wife was really good at collecting. She was so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking. She was fine. Has the how has the Kuflink collection strategy changed since you came on board? Do you have different protocols now that you didn't have back then, or has the system remained the same? Has it changed at all?
No, it's constantly evolving. I don't think Narinda will tell me off for saying when I came in we had a very small loan book. I remember when we got to £10 million of lending, it was a big celebration. We're 131 now, so the world's changed, and most of the processes that we've put in on the collection side I've built in only as you come across things, as things go wrong or things aren't happening quite so well, you think I need to stop that, so let's make a process, let's do something. And it's absolutely always evolving. In the last 18 months or so we've engaged with some solicitors who make a legal approach through solicitors' letters 6 weeks before a loan is due, so that they start that process in a friendly letter saying, hello, we're the solicitor that deals with the redemption for Kuflink. I'm sure you're on track. I'm sure your solicitor's ready to be engaging with us. And that's working well. So that's a change that's come in. So we're absolutely open to change. I think this goes back to the a small company, you can make changes fast, and it is constantly evolving. So yeah, I don't think there's I would never think we're going to get to a process that's the best process and we're never going to change it.
Yeah, to be evolving, I think is important. You've got to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And do you follow the peer-to-peer lending industry as a whole, or do you just kind of focus on what you're doing over at Kuflink?
No, we keep an eye on our competitors, and I mean, we don't want to be a follower, we want to be a leader, but you do have to keep an eye on your competition. I would say that some of the peer-to-peer companies that maybe didn't last and have killed over, maybe we thought that they offered slightly higher interest rates than we thought we would be able to, because absolutely we need to make a margin. And we did at times wonder how they were managing their money to achieve that, and maybe it turns out they weren't.
That was the truth. I was going to ask you, how do you think that the peer-to-peer landscape has evolved and changed over the last 7 years?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think there was always a focus on getting the money back. You absolutely have to collect your money. You have to turn that money back around again. So it's all I've said before. I think I've said to you, Lawrence, that any fool can lend money, but the trick is to get it back.
Yeah, that's really all that matters at the end of the day, isn't it? Of course, there are people involved, and from an investor side, we only see the money side, right? But you see the people that are involved in actually borrowing this money, and these are real people, and they're not huge corporations that you were lending to when you were in the banking world. You talk about different people. So I think it's really fascinating, actually. I actually really glad I get to pick your brain, because I get to learn, so much. I got one more question for you, and then we'll kind of go through a couple in the chat and get you out of here so you can go watch the Gravesend United football game.
So my family remember what I look like.
Yeah, you can get home to Sophie and make us some tea.
Yeah.
Tell me, this is an important question, because this is the one that lenders ask me a lot.
Yep.
Ultimately, you want to protect lenders' money that have put up their money to lend to these borrowers. Can you just give a quick overview on how you protect the lender's interests?
Okay, so we have quite a tight credit policy. We have a quite involved underwriting process. So in my mind, it really helps if a loan is underwritten well at the beginning and we understand the risk we are taking. We don't like surprises. If I'm taking a risk, I'd rather know I'm taking it. So it absolutely starts with a loan being underwritten well, and the company and us Kuflink understanding that loan at the beginning. We are not a company where we write a loan that's a 12-month loan and we go away, and at the end of the loan we pop back up to the borrower and say, hello, you need to pay us today. We will contact our borrower all the way through. So although it's a short-term loan, we do try to build that relationship. So we try to stay closer to them so we can spot if anything's not going so well, if they're not making the right noises. We want to try and step in as soon as we can. So I think Nuin says to me, I take it too personally. I always assume it's my money. Would I lend this money? If it was my money, would I lend it? And I want to get it back because that's my money. Mm-hmm. So treat it as if it's your own. Would you lend the money? If you wouldn't lend it, then don't lend it.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think that's good. Okay, I'm going to fire off a couple of questions for you, and answer what you can. If there's something you can answer, it's okay to say I don't know, or I'll get you that information. All right. Neil Cook has asked, good evening, what is happening with Yarmouth Road? I don't honestly know what he's asking, but maybe you do.
I know exactly what he's asking. At the moment, I can't say too much, but we are on top of it, and I share his concerns. So watch this space. There's not much I can say at this point, but we're absolutely on top of that one, believe you me.
Okay. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this one or not. This might be more of a IT thing, but Alan Stratford has asked, can you please explain why selecting the default loans tab in the auto pool breakdown displays an empty list, but selecting the all loans tab shows 73 loan parts in default?
Nope, I have no idea. That's a tech one. So
Okay.
in auto, it's the default loans. Okay, I have no idea, but I will look into that, and we'll put something out on the forums.
You better get Harry here right now.
I need my tech people.
Okay. All right, so you can look into that one. Here we go. This is a good question from Dave Dawson. Do you have any experience with anyone defrauding, such as giving wrong information or hiding, maybe like you said, hiding their experience or hiding other details where they've obviously presented misaccurate information?
I have no experience in Kuflink of us being the victim of a fraud when we've written a loan. We've stopped a few, so we have a piece of software that can that we use that can evidence if a document that is produced has been tampered with. So we've caught a few that way and absolutely walked away from it. We're like, absolutely not doing this now, so let's walk away. I've had, usually when you go to recover, people move people into properties without our agreement or any rental terms to try and obstruct us getting possession of a property. We've changed locks, they've changed them back, so things like that. But nothing absolutely fraudulent that has caught us yet.
Yeah, because some of the companies that are no longer with us, some of them experienced some pretty nasty fraud situations where people borrowed under false pretense and just took the money and ran. So
yeah.
I think you're a bit smarter than that, though.
I can never say never, but we use a few software tools that I spoke about and other lending areas that we can look at that are across the industry. So we try to wheedle it out. But yeah, nothing so far, but can't say never.
Fingers crossed, hopefully there will
definitely
be nothing. Let's see if there's anything else that's related to you. Peter James asked if Paragon are still involved in support of providing finance, but that's kind of not really your... Oh, is that yes?
No, they are. Yeah,
okay.
Definitely they are.
I think that was a little while ago you went into... Yeah. I think they gave you a credit facility or something like that.
Up to 35 million.
That's not bad. If you feel like sending any of Paragon's money this way, I'll never say no. And one last question, Alan Stratford. Natalie, can you please explain the following headline figures from your stats page? Mm-hmm. I'll put it on the screen here. Total outstanding invested 322,000. Capital repaid 217,000. Net loan outstanding 131,000. He's probably asking maybe the numbers don't add up. This is the headline figures from your stats page.
Yeah, the stats page is something that we're looking at.
Let me have a look.
It comes from a baseline. We have a data analyst now that's looking at that. So
it may be a bit off.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm happy if the investor in question wants to send an email into hello@Kuflink, and we will definitely look at that for them.
Okay, yeah, do that.
It's probably the easiest way than me trying to sit here and crunch numbers now and work out what the difference is.
Yeah, I can't even add that stuff up in my head. Okay, and we'll take one more question. John Day, what is the current investor 1-year interest rate on AutoVest? It says up to 10.25%.
So that's a compounded rate.
Yeah. Is that current? That is current, right?
I'm just going to have a look.
I think so.
Auto Invest. So at the moment, 1 year 10.25, 2 years is 8.86 compounded, and 3 years is 7.5 compounded. So it's dropping away on the basis that we're kind of making an assumption that interest rates will start to drop a bit. But these things are constantly looked at, so I don't know how long those rates will stay.
Nobody does.
Latest interest rate meeting from the Bank of England, they didn't change the rates today, but they kind of made a warm feeling about maybe something in the summer. So, this is something that as a business we look at quite often.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
That's where we are at the moment.
Well, great. Natalie, that's all I have for you. I think definitely found it really interesting. We've taken up enough of your time, I think. Thank you again for coming and being so transparent as you always are. And everybody out there, don't forget, if you want to check out Kuflink, go to kuflink.com. There's a link in the description of this video if you want to sign up and get yourself a free account, take a look at them. And always feel free to reach out to them, and they're very good at answering questions. And yeah, so thank you again, and hopefully we'll have you back on at some point.
Yep, happy to attend again, Lawrence.
And it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, was it?
It's never bad.
I remember the first time you came on, you were fretting about a little bit. You thought, I don't really want to be on camera. And then you turned out you had a good time, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
There you go. Okay, well, get home to Sophie and your family, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks again.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So there you have it. Pretty good to see who is behind what I consider one of the most important positions at a peer-to-peer lending company. You've got the people that make the decisions on what loans are coming in and getting accepted, and then you got the person on the back end that's chasing the loan when that borrower decides I can't pay. And that's a pretty important decision, so it's good that you get to see what's going on. But just a quick housekeeping. Next week we're going to have Mike Bristow here, I believe, as scheduled for Crowd Property. He's going to be here live, 7:30 p.m. UK time. I'm going to be asking him some questions about what's going on at Crowd Property. I really hope you enjoyed the stream, and give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you very much for joining. That is all that I have for you this week, so we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.